Hey everybody, in this video I want to talk about the for loop. Now this one's probably the most confusing of them all, so if you have no experience with for loops, just stick with it, don't freak out, buckle up for the bumpy ride. Just kidding, it's not going to be too bad. Basically, to make a for loop, we keyword for, and then within parentheses, we give it 3 parameters. Parameters basically just what you put in the parentheses, and we always put expressions. So for example, in an if statement, we could say if the variable x is less than or equal to 5, this whole thing right here, this is known as an expression. And we'll be getting into more specific definitions of expression and all that, those technical terms soon. But this right here is the expression, and because we put it within the parentheses, it's known as a parameter. Anyways, we put in 3 parameters. The first one, we can define a variable. So let's use the variable I. And we can define it, we can give it a value of 1. And then we put a semicolon, okay? Now we give it the second expression, which is a test, just like in an if statement. We test it if it's true. So basically I'm going to be writing this out and then I'll be explaining it as I go. So here's our second expression, and then we put a semicolon, and we give it a third expression. So here's our final thing here. Then we have curly braces and something to do. We're just going to echo the value of I. Alright, so let me explain this now. As you can see, we have 3 things, each one separated by a semicolon. So this one, semicolon, this one, semicolon, this one. And just in case you can't read my handwriting, variable I has the value 1, variable I less than or equal to 5, variable I incremented 1. So how does this work? Well, when we first run this test, it's going to echo the value of I 5 times. It's basically going to count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. For loops are a way to repeat loops a specific amount of times. So we give it a value 1, and because we want it to do it 5 times, we say, well, less than or equal to 5, which 5 is equal to 5. And then each loop we increment I, so it counts 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hopefully that makes sense. So when we first start this, the first expression, the first parameter we put in, is going to be ran. So now the variable I has the value 1. So I'm just going to write that down here. Variable I has the value 1. That's the only time that expression is going to be used. So that parameter is now over with. Alright, now the next one, this is a test for true or falsedom, which I don't think that's a word, but anyways, is the variable I less than or equal to 5? If it is, the echo, or whatever we tell within this code, is going to be ran. And yes, it is less than 5. So it's going to echo the value of I, which is going to print 1. Cool? And once it echoes this, it's going to do the third parameter, which is I plus plus, or incrementing I. And if you don't remember that from previous videos, it's going to add 1 to the value of I. Because I has the value 1, now it's going to have the value 2. So now what? Is the variable I's value less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. So it's going to echo I 2. And then it's going to increment I to 3. Okay, now is I less than or equal to 5. Yes, it is. So it's going to echo I, right, 3, and then it's going to increment I to 4. All right, now is I less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is. So it's going to echo I, and then it's going, which will write 4, print 4 to the screen, and then it's going to increment I to 5. Now, is value of I less than or equal to 5? Yes, it's equal to 5. So that still runs as true. It's going to echo I, write a 5, and then it's going to increment I to 6. All right, now, is I less than or equal to 5? No, it's not. So is this going to be printed? No, it's not. Because none of those happened, we don't increment it either, and then we go on in the program. So that is the basics of the for loop. And although I made it pretty complicated and walked through each step, basically, it's going to do this. It's going to assign a value to I. That's the very first thing it does. Then it's going to test that value against a certain condition. The one we used was, is it less than or equal to 5? So it's going to test if I is less than or equal to 5, and that's true. So it's going to echo, and then it's going to increment. And just so we know where we're at, it echoes 1. Now, it doesn't have to assign this anymore, because that's the only time it's going to do that one. It's going to test, is I less than or equal to 5? Yes, which means we echo and increment 2. And then, so after this step right here, it's echoed 2, and the value of I is 3. So echo 2, and now we change the value of I to 3. Then we test it, less than or equal to 5? Yes. So we echo the value 3, because we changed it, and then we increment it. Is the value of I less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is, so we echo it, 4, and then we increment it. Is the value of I less than or equal to 5? Yes, it is, so we echo it, 5, and then we increment it. Is the value of I less than or equal to 5? No, it's not. So then that is the end of the program. Now there is ways you can change this loop to do other sorts of things. This is the most basic way to use it, and this is probably the most common way, just to do a certain thing a certain number of times. You can also omit certain expressions or certain parameters that we give it to make an infinite loop or anything like that, which you can look in the PHP manual if you want more specifics, or you might be getting into that in future videos. So that's all I really wanted to say in this video. Hopefully that was clear. I know it was a little more complex, but I tried to explain it in a simple manner. And if it's not crystal clear yet, that's okay. I understand. I'm a horrible teacher. It's fine. But you should still subscribe. Thank you.